I have indeed. He's still sitting in his exact same place as yesterday and is as fat and as full as ever. You can see he is panting away and is just trying to cope with this massive stomach that he currently has at the moment. So Tingana is still sitting exactly where we would have expected him to be, really. I wasn't 100% sure he would actually be here, given that I asked Noelle this morning. She said there wasn't too much left of his kill, and when I look up into the tree, there really is only a leg and a bit of stomach content that is hanging down, so it's not very much. And please excuse the antenna. It just parks in a way that the antenna doesn't quite work for what we're trying to show you. Is it not a little bit to the right, Vildy? No, there it is there. So there's just what's left of the carcass, very little. In fact, I would imagine he'll go up there this afternoon or this evening, much like he did yesterday, and that will be the end of that very quickly indeed. So there's not too much left. I'm pretty sure tomorrow morning Tingana will be moving around. I imagine he will stop off at the dam cam if he's looking for water. Often they do go for water after a big meal like this, because at the end of the day he's panted all day. And you can see how much saliva he loses during that panting process. He gets a lot of moisture that is lost, and so it's good to go and just try and kind of rehydrate and get as much liquid in as possible. So you'll find he'll go down there, drink, and then probably off on his patrol. And he'll be interested, I'm sure, to go and catch up with the two ladies and see what they've been up to in the form of Shadow and Tundi, as they've been quite busy today. So I'm pretty sure he'll go and check around what's going on. But you can see that he is seriously not very comfortable. You know, when a leopard has got his head up like this and is not lying down and sleeping on its side, that it's a tough time to be a leopard, although he'll be happy that he's got a full belly rather than an empty one. And I was thinking that potentially with the wind that is gusting the way that it is and the wind direction that we're having, it feels as though it's coming from the south. Now, the lions, I was saying earlier, the Angama pride is north of us and not very far at all, and I'm surprised that the scent of this is not drifting in that direction, and maybe, just maybe, the Angama pride might end up coming down this direction with Ralph. It'll be interesting. If they do come here, they won't really probably challenge Tingana too much. At the end of the day, there's not too much food there for them to get, and he'll quickly just jump up into the tree, into those small branches, and stay out of the way. Now, I believe a lot of you are discussing just how fat he is. Well, he is a bit of a ball, isn't he? He's got a round stomach at the moment, and compare that to yesterday when it was a nice bit of loose skin on the belly. You can see now that that is all gone and is now being stretched to its limit at the moment. Now, while we watch Tingana groom himself and make himself look pretty once again, let's go across to Stefan Winterboer, who seems to have found something that is at the beginning stages of its life. Well, not much has changed. He's just changed body position a little bit. He's turned and is now facing the opposite direction and is still panting away heavily. He groomed for quite a bit just now and kind of cleaned up all of that saliva and slobber that was hanging down from the chin, and now he's just kind of taking it very easy and having a really relaxed afternoon. I'm sure he's much happier today than he was yesterday. The temperature today is half what it was. We've got nice cloud cover as well, and so it's a better conditions to be a full male leopard today than it was at this stage yesterday. But nice to see that he's still resting and relaxing. Like I say, I don't think we're going to have much more of him tomorrow morning, so it's worth just spending some time. Also, at the end of the day, you never know what's going to arrive here. I'm very surprised that we've got no hyenas in this area. It's not exactly that far from the den sites, and at the end of the day, there's a strong smell of rotten meat from this impala over the last few days. So surprised, but at least it's been good for us. It means that Tingana is still here and hasn't managed to drop anything and it had been stolen or anything like that. But that is just beautiful. You can see there actually there's a massive tick in amongst his fur, so you can see how swollen and engorged that tick is. And what you'll find with these guys is they often get these ticks, and sometimes we don't notice it because often it's, you know, this leopard walks past us or it's at a bit of a distance, but he's lying quite close to where we are, and so we can actually see how engorged a tick can get. And I mean, that tick is maybe 50 times what its size when it first got onto there. It's gotten much more swollen and full of blood, and soon it's going to drop off and go on its own little mission and sort of molt basically, and then it will be able to breed and have its little ones that will torment and terrorize Scott and Steph over the next few days as they walk around the Sabi Sands. I know Steph got absolutely mutilated by pepper ticks this morning, so all of those little tick larvae that will be in the grass is thanks to big fat full ticks like those. There's also the odd fly that is landing on his face, so he's being, unfortunately, parasitized by a number of different little arthropods and insects at the moment. Christy, wondering if they overeat, will they vomit it back up? So, no, not necessarily. The only time I've seen cats vomiting things back up is if they've eaten too much grass, which causes them then sometimes to get sick. But that is a process that they'll often use to try and get rid of things that they're not digesting very well. So hair, bone, hoof, those kind of things are often injected and vomited after eating grass, after they've had a big kill like this. Otherwise, the only other time I've seen it is from very old individuals that have eaten chunks of skin and bits of bone that they haven't been able to actually chew and swallow correctly, and that's meant that they've kind of regurgitated it out almost as though they were choking, and this big kind of flap of skin will come out. I've seen it with lions quite a few times, but otherwise very seldom will you see a animal vomiting if they eat too much. They will engorge themselves, and they are designed to engorge themselves to the way that they are, because they don't know when they're going to lose this kill. Potentially lions could have arrived here last night, he could have dropped it when he was feeding, and so they're trying to get as much food and as much nutrients as quick as possible to make sure that they are nice and full, and then they leave this area, so they won't vomit out any valuable nutrients like that. But you can see how he's made himself almost like a little nest now. The grass is kind of flattened in a circular area around him. He's kind of rolled the whole area flat. The grass was much longer at one point, and he's kind of made this little round sort of area for him. It's obviously a comfy spot. I'm not sure why he's selecting that particular area. It's not like it's the shadiest spot. I still think that the termite mound where he was this morning with Noel would have been the best place to have him, and I was pointing it out yesterday. I was saying there's a termite mound just to my left that is the perfect place for him to lie down, but it seems as though he's happy there. He's got his little fallen over tree that's maybe providing a bit of shade, a bit of grass, and it seems all very good. But look at the size of that tummy. No loose skin today, not like yesterday. Yesterday there was loose skin all over that belly. Now it's been stretched wide and round. Jason, you were saying it's so good to see Tingana's baby yesterday morning. It is, isn't it? There's quite a few generations that this individual has fathered now. He's got a number of offspring out and about on the reserve, and so really good to see the newest generation, and hopefully Tingana will be dominant enough over the next period that that little one has got time to survive and to be able to stay healthy. It's of course going to be an interesting situation, because at the end of the day he is still physically absolutely healthy, he's still big, he's still dominant, but how long that's going to be for is anyone's guess. We know that there's quarantine pushing around here. We've got Horsano, who's getting bigger by the day. We have this unknown male leopard in Buffelshoek. There's another unknown male leopard that's been seen on Simambili Arathusa. There's Anderson. So there's a number of these guys around him that are going to cause him to have a lot of pressure and a lot of stress to try and keep this area as his own, and it's hopefully he'll be able to manage that so that that little cub that Tandi's got is going to be safe and sound and be able to have a situation where it can grow up healthy and big and strong, which will be what we want at the end of the day. Now, I'm not sure whether the cub is male or female, but I'm sure over time we will soon see, and that will be a good indication of whether or not that little one is going to stick around. Right. Tingana's sleeping. We're going to be patient and hope that he does the same as yesterday and repeat performance and goes up in the tree. While we do that, let's go across to Scotty D with his shell, I believe, of a snail. I do indeed. I don't think we're going to see too much movement just yet. I feel like it's going to be a very similar situation to what we had yesterday, which is when Tingana slept most of the afternoon away and then eventually got up and went up into the tree just before sort of drive ended. So I think we're going to have a very similar situation with him. It's worth being patient because it's amazing to watch leopards climb trees and sort of how agile and acrobatic they can be to get up in there. So sitting with a sleepy cat for a little bit is not the worst thing. Also, we've done a little bit of a loop around. There's not really too much else that was going on. I had sound for a few ellies somewhere on the western side of Djuma, which I think were the ones Scott saw earlier. So might as well just sit here and enjoy spending a bit of time with Tingana. Like I say, it's so often we just see him for brief glimpses and we get him moving through thickets and he can be tough to keep up with. That's quite cool to watch the grass move with his breath. Look at that. That's quite funny. I like that. Anyway, we often don't get to spend a lot of time with him, so it's nice just over the last kind of 2 days just to have sat with him and enjoyed the company of him and see what he gets up to. Of course, this is not normal Tingana. We know Tingana normally moves around quite a bit, but when he's got food like this, it just seems like a good chance to sit and enjoy and just kind of admire what he looks like. You know, he's a beautiful cat at the end of the day, and unfortunately I find that he's villainized a lot by people and he's given a lot of trouble, but he's actually a really pretty cat, and he's a perfect example of a big male leopard out of these savanna areas in the northeastern corner of South Africa. These big brute individuals that have fed on a lot of protein, and that's why they've grown to the sizes that they have. And he's just in fantastic condition at the moment as well. There's not really any scratches or scrapes on him. It seems as though that leg wound is healed, that one that we saw a few months ago, and so he seems as though he's in really great shape considering he's starting to age now. And like I say, it's just nice to admire the beauty of his coat and what he actually looks like. I was talking to Viam now as well, and it's maybe with Ralph we can have a look at it just now, but if you look at the size of his paws in relation to his body, we were just talking about how a leopard paw, even though it's big, is not nearly as impressive as those lion paws. Now, I know a lion is a much bigger individual, but it just seems as though the proportion of paw versus length of leg and thickness of leg is just so much bigger in a male lion, particularly something like the Birmingham boys. You know, they get these big feet, and it's amazing just to see how big a lion's foot is. And now when you sit, because this morning I sat with the lions during our rehearsal, and now I sit with Tingana and I see his paws, and it's actually, you realize just how much smaller they are than those male lions. But we are sitting with our spotted cat. Like I said, we're going to be patient, but it seems as though Steph has managed to find something spotty of his own. Scotty, he is still just sitting, sleeping. He's not really doing too much at the moment. I suppose he is awake at least, and he's got his head up and he's repositioned himself completely, and that's because he had a biting fly going in his ear that drove him crazy. There was tail flicking and biting and ear flicks like you can see now, and eventually he just got fed up and stood up and turned around and then lay back down quite promptly once again. Dula Ann, who's 5 years old. Dula Ann, you want to know, will Tingana break the tree because he's so fat? Well, Dula Ann, there's a very, very distinct possibility that once he gets up into that tree on those smaller branches that he might break them and fall down. Although the tree is quite strong, and where he's put it, he's got a chance that it is quite sort of thick there, and so even though he is fat and he is full, it's a situation where that branch should hold on to him. But it wouldn't surprise me. I have seen a male leopard, and actually Tingana before, step on one of these smaller, thinner branches and actually break it and fall out of the tree. So it's possible. He is very fat and he is very full, so he's going to be a lot heavier, and it's possible that he might just come tumbling out of the tree. Lisa Marie, you're wondering if the small paws help leopards climb trees better than lions with the bigger paws? Well, no, not really. It's the fact that they're lighter helps them climb trees better than what the lions do. They're a much smaller cat. They are developed in a way to climb, so they've evolved to be incredible climbers. They have big, thick, wide chest areas that are incredibly muscular and strong, and lions have evolved slightly differently. So the paws have really got not too much to do with the fact that they climb. You'll find that even those big paws, lions do climb quite well. You'll find lions getting up into a tree is not the difficult part. It's coming back down again for lions, and that's why they don't really do as much climbing. And we saw with Ralph just now, the lion going up and falling out of the tree. It's the exact same thing with with lions going up. That's why they try and avoid it. And so with leopards, they've been designed to be able to come down a lot easier, and so it's much easier for them to climb, and why they do it a lot more. But the paw size doesn't really have too much to do with it. At the end of the day, the lions actually probably have an advantage in that their paws, being so big, are able to get those claws deep into the tree, and the power is there to get the grip to pull themselves up on these sort of very vertical trees. It's just that they weigh a lot more. Right, now Tingana is still going to relax for a while longer. Hopefully he is going to get up and hopefully not break the branches in the tree, but if he does, we will be here to see it. And while we do that, let's go back to Scott, who seems to have made an I can't speak right now, but he's got something that he's found on the ground that is no longer with us. Well, Tingana has moved the sum total of about 1 meter at this stage. He got up and decided that he'll move just a little bit closer, so we're edging towards the tree. He's not sleeping now, which I suppose is a good thing. He's got his head up and he was watching some guinea fowl that walked past us just now. Every now and then he looks over towards us as well, just to kind of check around, and you can see the tummy almost gets squashed on one side for too long that he decides I can't do this anymore and just rolls over and then squashes the other side for a little bit. So slowly but surely he's moving his way around, and he's got these little favorite patches all over here as he kind of goes, and I'm sure he'll end up in the tree at some point. Now, Lady Starfire, you're wondering how often lions and leopards cross paths on Djuma itself. Well, Lady Starfire, that's a difficult question to answer in that a lot of the time we don't see what goes on during the middle of the night. So there's probably times where they cross into each other's paths a lot more than we actually witness. But in terms of witnessing lions and leopards together, not as much as you would think. It depends also on what leopards are around, what lions are around. At the moment, the Angama pride and Styx pride are so transient through Djuma that we really don't see them here for any length of time at all, and therefore we're not finding too much interaction between them and leopard. When you've got a situation where lions spend a lot of time in an area, you might find then there's a lot more of that process, particularly if we had a situation like now, if the Nkuhumas had to den on Djuma like they did last year when they were here for that number of days, and we've got Tundi on a den, you might find that the interaction between the two of them would be a little bit more frequent. But it's difficult to say. I mean, the last time I saw lion and leopard in the same sighting, or even remember, was the sighting, I think there was a sighting of Tumba, but I didn't see it, with the Styx pride, and prior to that it was little Hosanna that was with the Styx pride as well. But that's the last I've seen of lions and leopard interaction. It's been a long time since I've seen the two of them together. It happens in the West. I know they've seen a few recently as well, with lions kind of trying to steal kills and various other things, but it's not as common as you would think. So in fact, I haven't seen it, like I say, in the last probably 4 or 5 months. I haven't seen any lion-leopard interaction at all, which just goes to show that it's not as frequent as we think. There's a far higher chance of wild dog leopard than there is actually lions leopard, and the reason why is because wild dogs tend to spend a lot more time running through these blocks and through these thicker areas where leopards are often hiding out during the day, and they then get chased up into the tree, and we then see that interaction like what Mvula and the dogs had the other day with Noel. It's different from lions because lions tend to walk on roads a lot of the time, and so leopards generally are not going to just be sleeping on a road. It's very seldom that they sleep on a road all the time, and so they move along roads, and the leopards are lying in the bush, and they kind of just miss each other. And exactly what's happened with the Angama pride and Tingana today. The lions have moved eastwards past the point of where Tingana is. So where Ralph is now is actually, they've gone past us, and the chance of them now finding Tingana is probably very slim, unless he goes up into the tree and monkeys start to alarm call, and they then get some sort of indication that he's here, or impalas move here and they start shouting. There's really probably no chance that he's going to be able to actually, well, they're going to be able to find him in this particular area, and at the end of the day he's going to finish this up in pretty quickly tonight, and then he's probably going to be off on his territorial patrols as normal. Joshua, you're wondering how close Tingana is to Tundi's den sites. As the crow flies, what do you think, VM? A kilometer? Maybe about a kilometer away, not very far, so that's less than a mile from where Tundi's den is. At the end of the day, he just has to go straight down Mvubu onto the Muluwati and follow the Muluwati along, and he's pretty much there, so he's not very far at all. It would probably take him, I reckon, if he had to go into his striding, normal kind of territorial patrol, I would say it would probably take Tingana 20 minutes at the most to get there, maybe even 15. So it's not very far from Tundi's den, and I wonder if we're not going to see a far more frequent sightings of Tingana, and it happens a lot when you get a female that has her cubs. You tend to see the dominant male actually spends a lot more time in that area. We've seen it with lions and leopard too. I've seen it with Anderson and Tiani. They spend a lot more time in that section while the cub is still fairly new, and they then make sure that it's all safe. So I'm pretty sure he knows there's a cub already, and he's going to then protect this area, and hopefully we'll see a little bit more of him. Now, I think I'm supposed to be linking to Scott. I missed the link completely, but I'm sure you'll have some sort of handsome face staring back at you out of the form of all the boys that are out this afternoon. Well, Ralph, I feel like I'm a vulture myself. I'm sitting watching this male leopard in the hope that they will get up and start moving, or he will get up and start moving, but so far nothing of the sort. It's quite funny though, he's got a piece of grass that kind of keeps sticking into his mouth that is driving him a bit dilly as well. He's having a tough time. Once he gets away from the flies and the insects, grass goes into his mouth, and keep hearing him coughing and spluttering, but yet he doesn't move his mouth at all. He just keeps putting his mouth in the same place. So not being the cleverest this afternoon, but it's okay. We'll forgive him. When you've got a big fat belly like that, I suppose you can be forgiven for being a little on the lethargic side. The good news is that every now and then I see him glancing up towards the tree, which means hopefully it's now starting to get a little cooler, a little darker, and that maybe, just maybe, he is going to decide now to get up and go. There we go. He's actually up right this second. Are you going to go up the tree, or are you just going to go lie down closer to it? So he keeps doing this. He gets up and, oh, here we go. It's all of about 2 meters that he has walked, and it is a step closer to the tree though. So it's slowly but surely heading in that direction. I would imagine that we will get to a situation where he is going to get up and go into the tree itself. Whether or not it's going to be in time for the end of drive, I'm not quite sure, but he is looking up. He's kind of gazing in that direction now, and so I'm hoping that he is going to head in that sort of vicinity. But what I'm going to do is, because VM's got about 20 bushes in the way of Tingana's face, I'm actually going to reposition us and just go around, and that way we'll have a much clearer view of where he is at the moment. Oopsie, we've got to get it into the right gear first. Sean, so you're wondering about leopards, whether the skin is spotted and what color their skin is. Now, I've personally never shaved a leopard, so I've never seen what is underneath there, but I know that they do not have spotted skin. So they have a situation where they have a coat that is spotted, and underneath it seems as though the skin is just normal, like ours would be. There's no real spots that I know of. Now, I could be completely wrong. Like I say, I've never shaved a leopard, so I wouldn't know, but it seems as though that would be the case. In terms of what color, and Kirsty, you're wondering why not? Well, Kirsty, I'm happy for you to come and show me how it's done, seeming as though you sound very cocky about it and as though that you've done this before. So I'm happy to bring you out after game drive, and you can come shave Tingana and see how that goes for you. Hand shave or machine shave? A hand shave, because Kirsty's being cheeky, so she's going to have to use a hand razor. We'll supply her one, especially a blunt one, and we'll see how Tingana decides to deal with a blunt razor on him. Now, see, this vehicle has pipped me because they've now moved exactly where I wanted to go, so that's not ideal at all. So that's not really what we were planning on, but anyway, we'll just try and find ourselves a better spot that we can maybe see, and it might just be the back of his head for now, because like I say, unfortunately the vehicle is gone. Although, are they moving out? It looks like they might be going, so let's just pull out of the way of them and they can then move out, and we'll get back to the skin story shortly. Now, in terms of the actual color of the skin, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I don't really know what the color of the skin is. It'd be interesting to know. In gashes and things like that, and when they rub their skin and there's no hair left there, it seems to be quite a dark coloration, but that's normally because it's been rubbed raw and that blood then dries and gets that kind of dried blood color. So I would imagine that their skin is probably fairly light in coloration. The hair grows over it, and then we'll see. But I'll have to find out for you. It's a good question, actually. I've never really thought about whether or not the skin is dark or light, but I know that it's not spotted underneath. It's just the fur that is like that. So we're just trying to get out of the way of this vehicle to let them go past. Thanks, Ralph. And then we'll go and position ourselves exactly where I want it to be, which is going to be a perfect view of this male leopard's face. And hopefully he will then decide to get up and go into the tree, because that would be quite wonderful if he did. Still surprised no hyenas have found this. Given the amount of tracks coming in here, given the sound of us moving around in the bush and all the other things, I would have thought that something would have found us by now. So, Philip, yes, it would be, I suppose, cooler up in the tree. There would be a bit of a breeze blowing. The problem with that is that he's already struggling with short breath because of the amount of food in his stomach. It's pushing up on his diaphragm, decreasing the amount of air capacity within the lungs, and so he's having very short breaths. Now you go and lie onto a branch, and that's further compressing that stomach and those lungs even further, and he's going to be even more short of breath. So it's actually more comfortable for him to be down on the ground. Also, this evening it's now cool. There's a cloud cover. It's not in direct sun. You'll find that the grass is probably, I suppose, like anything, when you go and lie on nice green grass, it feels cool, and so I'm pretty sure he's not too uncomfortable from a heat perspective. I think it's more the fact that he's just overly full at the moment that's causing him to pant the way that he is and to take these short, shallow breaths. Being up in the tree, that, like I say, it would compress all of that and it would be a lot more uncomfortable. At the end of the day, also, there's no reason for him to be up for the sake of hyenas or anything like that, and so it's much easier to lounge around on the ground. The only thing that I would have thought he would have gone up into the tree for to get away from would be these flies. Up there where there's a bit more of a breeze, you tend to find that the flies aren't nearly as irritating as what they would be down on the ground. He's also not going to get ants and ticks and various other things, but I suppose if your stomach is full and you can't breathe nicely, then it's every reason to be down on the ground and in the lush green summer grass. But there really is very little left of this carcass. Now that I'm sitting here, it's pretty much done. That's going to be a little appetizer for Tingana. He's going to be on a diet dinner tonight, and he's going to have just a little bit, and then it's going to be finished rather quickly. You can see there's a bit of the stomach, one of the 4 stomachs that's hanging down there by the looks of things. That's full of rumen and a couple of flies as well, so there's actually not too much in the way of meat there, and then it's just 2 legs going up and over and a bit of the pelvis that's left. So that really isn't going to last very long at all. I would imagine that Tingana will chomp that down in the space of about 10 minutes if he eats like he was eating yesterday. Now, while we've had a look at the carcass and a couple of little flies that are on the carcass, Tingana has gone to sleep, and Scotty D is also looking for little small things as he roams around the bush using his own 2 limbs. Are we live? Live? Oh, there we go. So unfortunately I've got no comms at the moment, which is not ideal at all, so it's not very good. So hopefully we'll get those back at some point, which would be nice, but for now VM's just going to tell me what's going on. Anyway, Tingana is still busy trying to eat insects. Not that you would think you'd want to put any more inside there that isn't his impala. He seems to look around every now and then, and I heard some impalas just now snorting not too far from us, so maybe that's what he's taken notice of. Every now and then he takes a little glance up to this carcass, and I wonder if he's just thinking to himself, there's too much effort to maybe go up into that area and to try and actually get to those 2 legs, or if it's a situation where he's going to just be kind of go up and finish, or if he's going to abandon it and carry on. I surmise though that Tingana, who is an individual who likes his food at the best of times, will finish everything, but he kind of looks up at it as though, do I really have to go up into that area and to really kind of get those legs and bits of innards? Is it really worth it? I suppose time will tell. At the end of the day though, unfortunately we're running out of time a little bit, so I'm not sure if he is going to get up there or if he isn't. It's going to be interesting to see. Either way, he's a little bit more awake than he was earlier. At least the eyes are open, and he's giving us a glorious view of him. You can see that big, thick neck and shoulder area. It's amazing, actually, how big his shoulders are when you kind of see him from this angle. And he really has no neck to speak of. That tulip has kind of gone from the tip of that lip area all the way down to between his legs. So it seems as though everything is now completely thickened. John, so how a leopard gets rid of ticks is by grooming himself. So they'll use his paws, he'll use his tongue. They're quite flexible animals, and they can move around and try and get things off and try and kind of use their paws to stroke and pull those ticks off. So it's difficult for them, but they do manage, and it's why you'll see on older leopards, particularly males, is that their ears start to get quite tatty around the edges. That's because ticks get on there, and it's a lot harder to remove them there than anywhere else on the body. That tick we showed you earlier, he'll be able to groom that off quite easily. It's on his shoulder, so it's not too difficult. But the ones on his ears and his face, he'll just try and use his paws, and he'll try and just scrape them off and out of that area. And then of course a lot of them will drop off naturally. Once they've fed off his blood and they become bloated, they will drop off and go off. Oh, look at your tongue, you're looking very dopey. It's not ideal, Tingana. You're not looking as hardcore as a male leopard should. Is looking very dopey when his tongue hangs out the way it is. Right, so it's getting to that time of the day, unfortunately, where we're going to start thinking about going back home. But before we discuss any of those things, I need to remind all of you that we are doing a rehearsal tomorrow morning. So there will be no sunrise drive tomorrow morning, but there will be a sunset safari like there was this afternoon, and hopefully it will be a busy one like we've had today. So hopefully all of us will be out and about. There are a number of us that are busy working at the moment. Quite amazing to have 8 guides, from considering, and especially to have 5 on Djuma after the quiet period we had in the winter months. It's kind of something to get used to at the end of the day. So it's been nice to kind of have everybody back, and I've certainly enjoyed spending time with Scott again. It's been a long time since I've seen Scott, and you know, we spent a lot of time together when he was at Singita, and so was I, and so it's really been good to catch up with him and all the others that have returned back, and just having the wealth of knowledge between Steph and James and Scott and Noel and Ralph, and the discussions that come out of that is really good. So it's super good to have everybody back, and it's been a wonderful last few days as they've all arrived. But like I say, unfortunately, we're going to start heading back now. Tingana didn't do his trick and climb the tree for us, but he was still absolutely beautiful. It sounds like the Nkuhuma Pride were a treat this afternoon, and at least moved around for a little bit and played with their leopard tortoise. And both bushwalks seem to have had a wonderful time on their exploits in the African bush, and James with his rover as well. So from all of us, it's been an absolute pleasure, and from Kirsty and FC, we'll see you all tomorrow on the Sunset Safari. Hope you have a wonderful evening.